hey, thanks for tuning in. I'm Pastor Cody.
And I'm Pastor Matt.
And we are here
Having a conversation.
having a conversation. That's what we're doing today.
On the conversation.
Yep.
Yeah, man.
Man, so we took a week off from a formal broadcast last week, and
Yes.
we just he went live in the Facebook group, and but now we're picking it back up as things are.
Yeah, it was great. And if you contributed last week as we lived in the private Facebook group, I know we brought Annie on. She joined
Guest host.
Yeah, she joined on the camera, and just we had some great questions, some good feedback. And we're talking all about Christian liberty. Chapter 8 and through chapter 11 in 1 Corinthians is about that topic. And so many had questions. And those of you maybe that aren't engaging or haven't engaged in this topic or with the message so far, you can do so. You can just jump in if you have a question. Man, I wonder if this is okay or if this is not okay biblically. Because ultimately that's what's happening. Paul is answering questions that this church had. And he's saying if it was or wasn't. And what I love about it is that he answers the question, whether with a black and white answer or even a gray, answer to reintroduce the heart or the root of the problem and the heart of the matter, I should say, to really get to the questions that they should be asking and acting in such a way that is profitable for the gospel, And so I've really enjoyed it, chapter 8 through chapter 11. Of course, we're not through it all the way. We're a few messages in this new section. But if you contributed last week in that conversation, thank you so much for commenting.
We're so grateful.
Yeah, and joining the broadcast there. It was really good, really helpful.
Yeah. And so if you're watching this right now, we would love your contribution in the comments.
Yeah.
Feel free to give your 2 cents, ask a question, or share with your friends.
Yeah.
Share previous broadcasts from our YouTube channel or clips that go out on our Facebook page. We'd be eternally grateful.
Absolutely.
Or on Spotify, my personal favorite.
It is my favorite as well.
Yes, it's my favorite.
Nice.
Man, so moving on to this week. So last week you talked about you were 1 Corinthians 8, and this week we're 1 Corinthians chapter 9.
Mm-hmm.
And on the topic of Christian freedom, so you have in your notes here in the program, and if you want access to these notes, they are linked in the description of this video for the sermon notes. I'm reading from the same ones that you have. So we have here Christian freedom exploration. Chapter 8 is you may not want to do that thing because of who it may affect, the pastor to the people. Chapter 9 is who do you think you are? You don't deserve that thing, the people to the pastor. This is truly the reality we live in today. What is happening? These are the notes. So what is happening?
What is happening is, and here's what I see Paul saying, the same people who think they are entitled to something will be the same people who judge on what others should or should not be entitled to. There is definitely a spirit of entitlement in this church, the church of here at Corinth, and in the church today, we see the same thing. So in chapter 8, we find that it was meat offered to idols. Can we, in fact, purchase or buy or eat meat that were offered in temple sacrifices to other false gods? And the answer, Paul, is like, look, we know that those false gods are not, they're not ultimately the real supreme God. Yahweh is. And so, essentially the sacrifice is happening to them. The worship that is happening to them is false. Those are false idols. That's a false construct. So, you're eating something, if you boiled it down to, it's just meat. Like the sacrifice, it's fake, it's pagan, it's not real. And, so he basically is saying, like, of course it's okay to eat meat. And essentially, I think, really the point of it here is you have this melting pot. You have some Jews that were still living by those religious dietary laws. And then you had Greeks that were not. Romans that were not, and so he's continuing to become all things to all men.
Yep.
He's continuing to say you should not judge or look down on others that are not keeping the law the way you think they should be keeping it, because ultimately that's not the point. The point is not these dietary laws. The point is that it was pointing to Jesus. And Jesus, the cross, that's where the power is. That's where that's the secret sauce.
That's the real meat and potatoes.
Yeah. So, why are we getting hung up on this thing? And so then, but Paul, he kind of pedals back and also says, look, if this is an issue of, winning or losing a brother or sister, I'm just not going to eat meat. How about that? So
Going vegan.
yeah, going vegan, chapter 8. So the people who were saying, I should be able to do this thing, I should be able to do it, and you shouldn't, in my Christian freedom, you shouldn't say anything about it. Well, Paul's like, yes, you should be able to do that, but you should also be able to have self-control and not put a thing before a person. And a weaker brother should be able to be strengthened by a stronger brother, because the stronger brother says, I'm just not going to eat meat. That's kind of where he's headed here. And so chapter 9, Paul defends himself. And in this last week's message, which for me, I don't really like preaching passages about finances and pastors and money, but Paul, he goes right at it. Mm-hmm. And he basically says, look, I have a right. I have a right to be fed, and I have a right to monetary gain, even though I'm helping you spiritually. And so I think this is just a huge thing of value and victory, which we'll talk about. But what Paul, I believe, is connecting here is the same attitude that makes you think you should be able to do something at the expense of someone else is the same attitude that is going to have you pointing your finger at what someone else is receiving or not receiving. And so that is that spirit of entitlement. We have to fight against that.
Yeah.
We have to arm ourselves against this idea. So if you find yourself, and you're listening to this broadcast, if you find yourself on, this is about you right now, nitpicking others, and Paul specifically had folks nitpicking whether or not he should or should not take a salary, and that's just me putting it in 2021 context. But we know he's living with Aquila and Priscilla, and he's tent making, and he's making his own money on the side. And he's saying, don't judge me for that. Don't judge me for making my own living. It's my right to turn it down. The same Jesus who said, a laborer is worthy of his hire. He's worthy of the payment for the value that he's bringing to the table, is also the same Jesus who said, just trust the Lord for your provision. Don't take any provisions or meat or preparation for your journey. The Lord will provide. So Paul is saying it's both. If Peter wants to have a wife and travel with his family, then you should take care of him. If I choose to make my own money and not marry, that's my choice. That's my right.
Yeah.
And it's my right to forego, and it's my right to also, have that right given to me. And so the problem that he is addressing is on the people and the church that are calling that out and saying, no, we don't agree with the way you're living here or the way you're doing this. And Paul's saying this is the problem, is within that I have Christian freedom. I have Christian liberty to make that choice. And so your attitude towards others in their Christian freedom tells a lot about your character and your relationship with Jesus. Mm-hmm. And so how you view others in those decisions, and we're not talking about sin, we're not talking about things that are clearly wrong, right? And he's addressed a lot of these things like marriage and fornication, and he'll continue to address them. But as we deal with things that are maybe tier 3, tier 4 issues, like what's your attitude towards people? What's your attitude towards a pastor and his finances? What's your attitude towards someone in their Christian freedom? Well, I don't think they should do that. Well, I don't think he should do that. I don't think she should do that. That's what Paul is saying. You're not entitled to your opinion about what someone else does or does not do. What you're entitled to do, or should be entitled to do, is love them. What you should be entitled to do is control yourself in such a way that your perspective towards them is shaped by the gospel, not shaped by their actions. Does that make sense?
I think it does. I think that's the hinge pin right there, is the gospel is all that matters.
Lord, kill me if I don't preach the gospel.
It's interesting. I've never read
Lecrae song. Shout out. Love you.
We love you, Lecrae.
Yes.
I've never read this in a way where Paul is essentially hitting the same issue from two different sides in chapters 8 and 9. And if I'm not mistaken, that's kind of how you're coming at this the past 2 weeks, is that spirit of entitlement cuts two ways.
Yeah, well, I think
sort of.
the topic is Christian freedom. Mm-hmm. That's the overarching topic.
Yeah.
And so he's saying, look, this is a people issue, and then now you're coming at the leadership. Mm-hmm. And Paul's like, look, I'm going to defend myself.
Yeah, and he does.
Yeah, and so my point is more or less, this problem or this issue, chances are it's coming up in multiple areas in multiple ways. And so he addresses multiple issues, and in his conversation, he's going to give us clarity on a lot of things. We're going to get clarity on whether or not a pastor should or shouldn't receive, or where that line of Christian freedom is financially, where that line of Christian freedom is, whether pastor wants to marry or not. He's going to answer those things very directly, but he's ultimately hooking it back into where the responsibility lies on, that parishioner, that person in that church that is causing problems, and where their liberty starts and stops.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's muddy. And I think with this, and I think the problem with the way a lot of people interpret this and other parts of Scripture is that we are putting periods where there should be question marks. Like Paul isn't after a specific thing here, a specific practice, but a worldview and a mentality of where the gospel comes first. It's not about whether you can or can't eat meat. Comment your favorite kind of pork in the comments, because I know we all love pork.
Bacon.
Yep. And it's not kosher, but it's okay. It's all good.
Thank the Lord. Christian freedom.
Right. It's not about a specific thing that we should or shouldn't do, like a simple religious thing. It's about a perspective.
Yeah.
And having that perspective should make us constantly evaluate our motive, what we're doing and why we're doing it, and does it help or hinder the spread of the spread of the gospel.
Yeah,
is it helping the spread of the gospel
thing.
Or is it helping the spread of pineapples on your pork? Because that's the best way to eat it. Change my mind.
No, it's not. That's okay. You can eat your pizza how you want it.
Yeah,
but
and then his perspective on his living and his money is interesting as well.
Yeah.
And what we really want to know, Paul, is can we see your tax returns?
Can we see
That's
it?
what we want.
Will you make it
Hashtag
public?
Paul's tax returns. Hashtag it. We want to see them.
Yeah, that's right. That's funny. Yeah, it's like you said, it's the thing. Like whatever the thing is a thing coming before someone.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's really tangible. You say, no, it's not. I want to know about this thing. Well, is that thing, whatever it is, more important than a person?
Right. And I think that, if you read these letters as kind of, like you said, we were talking last week or the week before, I can't remember. Camp makes everything a blur.
It all blurs.
But you were like, it's clear in the letter that Paul is addressing questions that were asked of him. And I can just kind of imagine them saying like, okay, Paul, well, what is the thing that we shouldn't do? Like, should we do this? And Paul's like, well, does that thing hinder the gospel? Does that thing give you a good or a bad witness? And they're like, but can't you just tell us what the thing is?
Yeah.
Like, should we or should not?
Yeah.
And Paul's answer is, is gray when we want it to be black and white.
Right.
But it's just not.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that for sure. And he just gives more than, I think this is even more helpful in the sense that rather than giving one answer, he just gives multiple scenarios. He's like, this is okay, and this is okay, and this is okay. You want to be engaged and never marry? That's probably best. You want to be married? Sure, whatever the Lord gives you. But are you living out and acting your calling out where you are in that place the Lord has given you? And so what I love about 9 is that he comes out swinging, and he's like, okay, you want to talk about me? You want to make this about me? Let me help you.
Paul took the gloves off.
Yeah. Let me help you with what I'm entitled to and what I'm not entitled to according to the law. And from there, what you're going to find is that it's my choice to do or to not, to take or to not take. And the fact that you're questioning that shows that your heart is not in the right place, which I think is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really
and
good.
It's interesting that Paul maps and gets, like, quote unquote, his entitlements, if you want to call them that. But it's interesting that he patterns that off of the priesthood, and I think it's in this chapter or the one before, but he talks about how the priests, like, they were all, or maybe it's chapter 11 where I'm going this week, where he briefly talks about being partakers of the sacrifice. But, he's kind of getting where he's like, look, I'm, and he references the priesthood and, how they were supported essentially by taxes, if you want to call it that, the temple tax, the tithe, the sacrifices, like the people who were a part of the body of Israel supported the priesthood. And Paul's like, listen, the church is a new Israel.
That's right.
Like, we are the apostleship. These, your leaders are the priesthood, even though everybody's a priest. But it's the same thing, though, because Israel was both a nation of priests, a royal priesthood, and then they also, within that, had a priesthood.
Right.
And I think that's kind of how Paul's looking at it, which I think is interesting, that he is taking that way.
Yeah. Yeah, and God calls us all. God calls us to different, positions within the body, but we're all still brothers and sisters.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
we see it.
Yep.
But I think the biggest thing is like, how are we going to fight this spirit of entitlement? How are we going to, reflect in our own hearts whether or not we are feeling entitled or feeling like we deserve, some sort of thing, and where are we missing the point? Where are we missing the gospel in our lives? Because we're sidetracked,
Right.
Because we're looking for something when the Lord is like clearly saying, look, it's about people. It's about someone, it's about your neighbor and your coworker and your family member. It's that person that you're supposed to be loving.
Yeah.
But you're stepping on them because you're worried about something, Anyway.
It's just like you said, it's all about where your value is. If your value is on things, well, then you're going to take and be a part of the Corinthian church that has the mindset like, well, I'm just going to go down and get the meat from the temple. Like, it's whatever.
Yeah.
It's fine. I don't care if that offends you.
Right.
And then on the other side of that coin, you have like, no, I have every right to go do that and eat this meat that was sacrificed to idols, because after all, whoever those gods are, they're not Yahweh of Israel. And, therefore it's insignificant. I'm going to get mines,
I'm gonna get mines.
And then, so you have these two things, and Paul's like, look, where is your value? Is your value on people or things?
Yeah.
It's that simple. And if we're running what we're doing and saying through that
filter,
litmus test, that filter, then we'll know what's right and what's wrong if we're being honest with ourselves.
Yeah. And if maybe you were there for the sermon Sunday, and if you haven't watched or listened to the
link's in the description.
Yeah, watch it, listen to it, and I think it's a helpful thing, as we kind of talk about these topics. But maybe you've had a day or two to muse on it. Have you evaluated the value? Have you looked at and weighed and just thought like, where are my priorities? Are they aligning more towards things that are helping get people to Jesus? Or, if someone were to shadow me, so to speak, if someone were to, God forbid, need my light in order to see, let your light so shine among men that they may see your good works and glorify the Father, would they glorify the Father, or would they glorify something?
Yeah.
Would your life be a pattern of something that would develop in real gospel tangible ways in restoration in someone else's life? Or the value or the substance of your life, would it show them something entirely different?
Yeah.
And that's what Paul is saying. Look, my choices, the things that I'm doing, the choices I'm making, they're pointing towards Jesus. And then he defines the win. He defines the victory over that spirit of entitlement is, look, I beat my body into subjection,
Literally.
Yeah. And I think that this is something that we maybe don't value enough of, and that's where it's not as much about a right and wrong, you know what I mean, as like things I need to cut out, as it is like, what is ruling over you? Like maybe that thing, maybe it's your diet. This is something I go back and forth on a lot, just in terms of like, man, I give into food a lot.
It's a struggle.
Way more than I should.
I went into my fridge last night at like 2 a.m.
Did you give into it?
Yeah, I did. I had 2. It's like those peanut butter cookies from Aldi.
The
Man.
chocolate covered ones.
Yeah.
They're so good. 99 cents for a whole pack.
Such a good deal.
And they're incredible. Best
Yeah.
cookie on the
They
planet
taste
for the price.
the best between 12 a.m. and 4 a.m. Anytime after that, they're like, but sometimes I just woke up.
And they're better cold too, aren't they? They're so good cold.
I got it out of the fridge and I opened the fresh pack. My wife probably woke up to me opening the pack of cookies. Now that our kitchen is downstairs.
How are you enjoying your new house?
So good.
Oh, my goodness. I'm so happy for you both.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Anyway, get you those cookies.
Yeah.
And
a new house.
And a new house. But do not open those cookies until that time window. That's my intermittent fasting. Is I restrain my eating of junk to those hours. Yeah. And then you wake up with the after. It's a good.
It's good. Yeah. We unlock here with face, whatever it is, the recognition. So the victory should be properly defined. I put it this way: our self-control for His kingdom control. If we could do better at self-control, I believe we would see more margin for gospel and kingdom work to happen in our lives. And I think this is what's wonderful about this. Paul is like, okay, after I just got done telling all of you, what my rights are, I'm going to let you know that I am governing me way harder than any of you can govern me.
Mm-hmm.
You think you're pointing out flaws, and maybe this is not exactly the perspective that he's coming from, but this is how I see it.
We're speculating. A
Yeah.
little bit.
Well, specifically in my context as a pastor, it's like, and generally speaking, we have people from all different walks of life. And, if we will do best when we are focused on ourselves, here's like modern day, just be the best version of you.
Be the best version of yourself.
Be the best you that you can be.
Yes.
The garbage Facebook, Instagram, self-love quotes. It's
just love yourself.
Yeah, it's a heap and pile of trash. But the point is this. That was a little harsh, but it's okay.
No offense, Rachel Hollis.
Yeah, girl, go wash your face.
Ooh,
Get the shame off of it.
wash her
No,
off
I'm
your
kidding.
bookshelves.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Oh, anyway, just kidding. We love you.
Please subscribe.
I don't know you, but anyway, I'm sure that anyway, you love Jesus and all of that stuff. But
in your own way.
yeah, but I just wow, that's rough.
I'm sorry. I'm
No.
sorry if you're watching. We're just rare form today.
Yeah, we are. But the point is if you have that right gospel perspective, you are judging, and I think too, this is an issue that the church faces, if we're honest. Sarah Bareilles.
Oh man, Sarah Bareilles.
Not Sarah Bareilles. What was her name? Yeah, that's right. Laugh at me and you can't.
Oh no, it's Francesca.
Francesca.
I'm not even going to try to pronounce her last name.
Battistelli.
Battistelli.
Who the heck is Sarah Bareilles?
She
Anyway.
sings that. It's like she used to be she had like 1 or 2 hit songs like 10
Yeah.
years ago.
It sounds the same thing, but
Pop,
it's like
yeah.
pop stuff.
Yeah, pretty
anyway.
much.
So
She's not going to write you a love song.
she's not. Sorry. But my point is yeah. But the point here is, I mean, can we even find the point where we are in this conversation? But
Yep.
I think we can. The point here that I'm driving home is, what does a win look like? A win looks like, yes, we value the gospel and we've put a premium on that. And so the victory comes when we are able to control and align ourselves and our appetites and what we feel like we should do in our Christian freedom with that value.
Mm-hmm.
So if we have the internal value, justice, gospel system that is aligned in our hearts, then we are becoming all things to all men. We are living in such a way that is allowing others to see Jesus in us. And you know what? That takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort. Yes, salvation is free and free to all men, and the gospel is an incredible gift. But once we have been given that gift, once we have received it, and we understand at the incredible price that we received it upon, that Jesus paid for, right? Then we are to do our best. We are to work hard at aligning ourselves with that value system. And you know what? That takes beating the flesh into subjection.
Just
Just
hit yourself so hard. Like, knock yourself clean out right now. Let us
into
know in
the
the comments
wall.
if you were successful.
Run into the wall. No, we are absolutely not talking about some type of masochistic behavior.
Metaphorically, hit yourself.
Metaphorically speaking, we are saying, like, look, tell yourself no. Like, get yourself under control. Evaluate you in these circumstances where you say no. You don't go to the fridge proverbially, and open it up and eat the cookies at 2 a.m. You avoid that.
Proverbially,
Yeah.
don't do it.
Yeah.
But physically do it.
Do
because
it.
You'll
love it.
You'll
You will
love it.
absolutely love it. No.
But I should exercise restraint. It's
You
bad.
should.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is just a beautiful passage of scripture where Paul is able to put the cookies on the bottom shelf, where everybody can reach it, and say, look, worry about you. Like, your Christian freedom and your Christian liberty should not be a stumbling block to other people, and quit pointing your finger at other people's freedom.
Yes.
Like, everybody govern themselves and worry about you. And how does that play out? How does it look in your life? How's the gospel being valued? Well, that's what victory looks like. Victory is when we look at ourselves and we evaluate and we say, you know what? We're going to not do X, Y, and Z, even though we could. but we're not
We
going to do
could.
it. But we're not.
Yeah,
We're not going to
not.
do it because we know that it's going to be a blessing to someone else.
Major key.
I love it. I
I
absolutely
think
love
I think we can sum all that up in what Paul said in verse 19. He says,
it. Hit it.
"Although I am free from all and not anyone's slave, I have made myself a slave to everyone in order to win more people." Huge deal.
You're
Huge
amazing,
deal.
Paul.
Yeah, he is.
Love that guy.
And your last statement here in the it's in bold here in the program. A value and victory should be two things that are weighed and lived out according to the Holy Spirit within and our gospel witness without.
Yeah.
And so we'll challenge you with this. It's the same from Sunday. Are you measuring and calculating these two things based on comparison or the truth of the gospel?
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Is this looking like what everybody else is doing and scrolling through, or is this what God's called me to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Lord loves you. He, has you as his image bearer, and he's got something uniquely crafted for you to carry out. And you can find worth and value in that, and you can work on that. Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling and singleness of heart as to the Lord, not to men. I may have just morphed like 4 or 5 verses together in that. But,
4 or 5 verses, 2-3 translations, and it all came together
and it
beautifully.
all came together.
Yeah, you threw some
But,
Septuagint in there.
Did I really?
No, I
So,
don't.
Yeah, but work it out. Let's get busy, and let's get busy working out these things that we can do to show value and bring value to the gospel, and not be as worried about what other people are doing.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. So, man, that was great.
That's it, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just continue to think and muse, and we'll see you in the pews next week. Cody's
I'm
bringing
going to
a
be
message.
preaching.
Come on,
Yeah,
man.
I'm preaching.
It's going to be good.
1 Corinthians chapter 10. Read
Yeah.
ahead. Get
1
in
Corinthians
there.
chapter 10 and possibly 1 Corinthians
Possibly
11:1.
11:1.
Stopping right there at 1.
We may, I may
You'll see
go
it.
over a verse.
Yeah, you'll see it.
Yeah,
but-
I'll try to cram it into about an hour. We'll see.
Oh, did you hear that?
There's a
Come on.
lot. There's a lot in there. And if you know me and you read it, you'll know that there's going to be a lot of stops on that train ride.
Yeah, it's going
gonna
to
be
be good.
Mhm.
Sunday's going to be good. I'm excited. I'm back leading worship.
Yep. We're singing Yaira.
We're singing Yaira. Yahweh and Yaira.
Mm.
But we're going to say Jireh
Yep.
because that's how
You can say what you want.
Jehovah
I won't,
Witness.
I won't listen.
Jireh. Jehovah. Anyway, we're a hot mess, but hey, we love
Yeah.
Jesus and we love
do.
you, and
Yeah.
we're so thankful that you've had this conversation with
Yeah.
us.
Thank
God
you
bless.
so much for tuning in.
Have a
We'll see you
wonderful
next
day.
time.